noticed, but you probably didn't, I was gone because I went on vacation and then I caught COVID. I thought I was safe because I always stay at home and I shun people, but that was just delusion. I forgot how people really are, and I'm just saying, be better prepared and more aware than I am. You are still vulnerable to COVID. We all are, and it's out there. Ugh. But because I'm so backed up, that is why this is part 2 of my June reading wrap up. I want to talk about the 6 nonfiction audiobooks and books that I read in June. As always, this is going to be more of a ramble, definitely a bit of a rank and a rate. And we're going to start off with my least favorite book of the month. Number 6 is going to be Travis Barker's Can I Say? This was not the book for me. I gave it 2 stars, mainly because I didn't like his music. So even though I learned that he is a very talented drummer and that he went through definitely difficult things in his life, it didn't give me any sympathy for how he definitely lives up to a misogynistic bad boy image. At, I think, 10 hours long, and this is going to be important when I talk about a later read, it was too long, even though, like I said, he's gone through a lot of events that you might find interesting. Being in the band Blink-182, being such a talented drummer at such a young age, losing his mother at a young age, how he talks about women. It was bad. It was bad. I don't know if you heard the quotes, but it was bad. The way he talks about his daughter and references a bubble butt, ew. And it's clear that he hasn't really learned anything from the events that have happened in his life. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he did survive a horrific plane crash, and at this point he is the only sole survivor. However, when it happened, the other person in the crash with him didn't call 911. Their first thought was to call their manager. So I don't want to victim blame, and yet it's very hard for me to read this book and to be able to identify with any of the things he said because I just don't treat people that way. I also wouldn't make those decisions. Clearly, I never would have done the things that he has done. Did I say this was 2 stars? Ew, with this book, would not recommend. I'm not really a spiritual person, so this was my number 5 read. I have had this on my TBR for a very long time, and it's technically one of the 24 books that I wanted to get out of there before the end of this year. So I accomplished it, and while I definitely learned more about the spiritual side to Tao, and I liked the way it tries to incorporate basic scientific concepts that we know when it comes to the universe, it was still a difficult book for me to fully jump into, and it seemed just a little bit hippy-dippy. So not really my thing, but like I said, I got things out of here, 3 stars. Number 4 on my list is Diamond and Rose. I already have a video going more into depth about this tell-all that is from The Real Housewives and the producers of The Real Housewives. 3 stars. And I do have to say that it has definitely inspired my current binge session, which is actually making it through all the Real Housewives of Orange County. The number 3 spot actually goes to Jewel's memoir, Never Broken. I was a big Jewel, I wouldn't even say I was. I'm a big Jewel fan. I read her book of poetry and have bought it back several times. I liked all her albums, and so listening to this audiobook was enjoyable because it was her voice and it clearly matches up to the songs that she tells and the stories that she tells through her music. Jewel had a very difficult life, one where she didn't have a lot of familial support, and I think of the books that I'm going to talk about, it's probably less triggering, although you should still check into it because her mom was not looking out for her best interests. Never Broken definitely has some hippy-dippy elements to it, but since I'm more understanding of Jewel's personality, that's why it got a little bit higher up on the list. Number 2 is going to be Richard Pryor's memoir, Prior Convictions. And that might be a little bit confusing because, oh my gosh, are there trigger warnings when it comes to this? If you don't know anything about the comedian, he certainly has a mouth to him, and he talks about some very sensitive subjects in a way that can definitely be off-putting to tons of different people. So if you read this book and you're like, he's kind of sexist, he's kind of a bit homophobic, He's kind of outdated when it comes to his views of race. I can totally see that. But I can also see how he got to those opinions after he describes the life that he leads. This book was higher up on my list because although, like I said, the language isn't the best when it comes to the females, there is some accountability and a little bit more awareness about where he is in society, something that's totally missing in Travis Barker's story. And it's funny because you would think I would be a little bit more victim blaming when it comes to Richard Pryor's incident of how he found himself on fire, and yet the fact that he's able to use humor and also acknowledge that it has to do with his drug use and his poor decisions kind of makes it a little bit of a more easier story for me to make it through. It is a 4-star book and therefore the number 2 spot. Also, just the fact that he went through such a crazy life and it was only about 7 to 8 hours compared to Travis Barker, who still has a whole bunch of life to live and was 10 hours for his. It made me think, there should have been some more editing done on the first memoir. My number 1 pick of the month is another audiobook. It is Among the Bros. This was a true crime, societal frat boy exposition about a drug ring that happened recently. And once again, I have a video for this, but definitely 5 stars. I feel like the audio clips that I've made of different things within the book, I'm going to be going back and referencing anytime I talk about frat boy or bro behavior, one of my favorite subjects too, philosophically, even though I am nowhere near that culture.